Welcome to the Magnetic Podcast, Season 2. I have Keenan on. We're going to get right to it. My background, how I met Keenan, real quick. I went to Austin, Texas. I knew of Keenan. I also followed Beck Holland, and I thought, why not go spend some time and money and whatever else it was to get there and go with some team members to see this thing, to flip the script. And there was a powerful moment, Keenan. I've shared it with you a couple times, but just for the listeners, I was wrong and I was right. I'm typically the guy who raises their hand and goes, oh, I've got the answer. And Keenan said something. And it kind of blew my mind how obvious he said, no, you don't understand. And he really phrased it around the problem versus really understanding that versus symptoms of pain, which seems so kind of heady. But when I heard him, I thought, you know what, that's the most simple way I've ever heard it put. And I felt not put on the spot. I felt kind of forever changed after that night because I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. I've been looking at it. Although I want to see it from this view, I'm seeing it from my lens. So Keenan, anyways, I could go on about gap selling and the way it's changed the way I approach sales. And when I deviate from it, how I'm reminded of it. But most people know you as Keenan and they know you from gap selling. What have you been up to, man? You're still here. You're still wearing red. You're still talking about gap selling. You're still doing the same thing, which is consistency. I love it, man.
Well, there you go. Consistency, right? Not much has changed, Still doing what we've always done, trying to change the way the world sells, trying to get people to help more and sell less, right? I mean, I should probably make that a t-shirt. Help more, sell less, right? So, yeah, I mean, not much has changed. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah. Well, I like your shirt. If you still think the same, and it says you're not thinking. And you think quite a bit. You hear people talk and get feedback and talk about your book and how it's changed. What's been the biggest change you've seen since you've originally released the book until now, where more people know about it, more people socialize it, maybe even some people think they're doing it, but they've never really read the book and done it?
I think the biggest thing I'm saying is the conversation around solving the problem, the conversation around discovery. I mean, I didn't write the book to, quote unquote, be a discovery book, but the general thesis is that so much of selling relies on your understanding of where the buyer is now, why that's not a good place to be, why they're unhappy there, how it's negatively affecting their business or their situation, how it's undermining their ability to be successful. So if you don't know any of that, you really can't be a good seller. So, and then you got to understand, well, where they want to go, why is that important to them, what happens if they don't make it. So understanding that in order to be a good seller, you need to really know the buyer, and the things you need to know about the buyer aren't public or aren't posted somewhere. So therefore, you have to ask the question. So by default, a lot of people are interpreting it as a discovery book, and I get it because about 70% of the sale is discovery. But what they're not recognizing is that once you have that discovery, what do you do with it, and what does an actual good discovery look like? Too many people say they do discovery. You spend 5 minutes listening to them do that discovery, and that's not discovery. It's an interrogation. There's no logic to the questions they're asking. There's no clear understanding of what they're looking for. They don't know why they're asking the questions in the first place. So it can be this complete shit show. So I'd say the biggest thing I'm seeing is the acceptance that discovery matters. Then I'm also seeing an embracing around the problem that if you don't have a problem, you can't sell anything. So I think people, whether they're bastardizing it or not, I just do really appreciate that we're seeing the world change around this concept of problem centricity.
If I go back to my training, Keenan, and I had great training at T-Mobile 2002, right? For the time. I remember we talked about who stole my cheese or who moved my cheese. Yeah. And I think the Challenger sale, we adapted that when it came out. We always kind of had these initiatives and then go, like 2 months later, the speaker would leave the room. And I'm like, where are we adapting this? Where are we holding checks and balances? When you think about, when I think about the economy now, I should say, I think about people thinking about ROI, regardless of the potential gain. Hey, how do I measure the ROI? How do you talk to an organization and say, this isn't me coming in for 2 days. This is you adapting it. And here's how you have checks and balances forever.
So we have an entire, what we call retention program after we come in and talk. And it includes everything from call recording to see how people in action are executing what they learned in the training. Then we have deal review. We actually look at the deals and see how well they captured the information they needed for the deals. We review all of that. We have a software application that we provide organizations that help them track the deals in a gap selling centric way. Then we help the managers. We have a manager track, which helps the managers then repeat what we've taught them and how they can do the call recordings, how they can review the.
This is scientific at this point, Keenan, right? This is years and years of doing this.
Yeah. So we just make sure that there's an entire what we call reinforcement package that comes in. Now we're building an enablement one. So we're going to show enablement how to actually implement and implement and put it in the DNA, execute across all the 3 layers of sales, the skill layer, the opportunity layer, and the forecasting layer. And so we're going to have a piece that's coming out in the next couple of months. So we'll have a whole sales enablement element to help sales enablement make it stick as well.
I love that. And sales enablement, I remember talking to your CEO, Brady, about this, and just thinking about the role of enablement right now and how it's more important than ever because you got to get people to perform. They're kind of being looked at and saying, are you doing your thing? You need to do more of your thing, but they're going, who's enabling me? Enablement needs to be enabled. And I don't think anybody's looking at Keenan and saying, oh, Keenan's an enabler. Like all he does is do sales enablement. Like I think discovery, I think sales, I think tightening, call it the point A to point B when I think gap selling personally. And I think a little bit to myself, right? I'm a seller. I'm going to be honest. I think, oh shit, this requires a lot of work. Talk to me about how you change that mindset of somebody from going, well, I want to be curious, but I also want to just sell some shit, to go, where do you start with that person?
We don't really spend much time on that.
Okay.
Right. It's sort of like, how much time does Bill Belichick, because what you're asking about is motivation to do the work. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many times does Bill Belichick say, well, most of the time I'm teaching them how to be better football players, but some of it teaches them just, they just want to make sure they can get to the game. You know what? If that's your motivation, you just want to get to the game, and you don't think that everything I'm teaching you right now makes sure that you stay in the NFL, then I have no time for you. So that question in my head is fucking stupid. Because if I'm teaching you how to sell better and you're like, I don't want to do this, I just want to sell, then you're not selling. Fuck not. Like what I'm teaching you is selling. And if you don't have the patience and time to get better at what you do so you can properly sell, then I don't have any time at all to spend with you and make you get it. Like I just don't have the time. Don't have the time. Nope. Don't have the time.
So I think I'm going to even loop this into content right now, because what I see out there as someone who just is a consumer and also a creator part-time during the day, I guess, and I love both parts of that. I don't hate consuming content. I see a lot of people and they're pitching it and they want the transaction, right? I'm pitching you, buy this thing. And that's really where I wanted to close the loop on that, is there is no discovery there. That's really now saying, assume you know the problem, try and close the gap in a 30-second soundbite, and then get them to click meet with me now. And I think it's so fucking hard to do that, number one. And number two, it doesn't follow any of the traditional process. So I think that when I think of people who think they can sell now without getting to know their buyer, without really trying to address each one of those problems one by one, might be wrong when they try to do it that way. Because I've tried it. It doesn't work. What advice would you give to those creators who are thinking that they can sell in a B2B setting, pitching, call it, and getting people to want to buy into their services over a 60-second video?
That's not content. That's an advertisement. I mean, people can understand an ad isn't content. Content provides value to the viewer, to the reader, right? The content is about providing value to the reader. So if you're creating content that gives me something as a reader, I'm like, ooh, that was interesting. I learned something. I can do something differently. Let's use it in context of Home Depot. Home Depot does an ad, that song, that song they play, and then you're trying to fix the home, and it's where the doers do, or something like that, right? Yeah. That's an advertisement. That's not content. Now, within that, if you go to their website and they have a video that says how to change the tile, right, or how to use those little square things when you do tile, because I've never done tile before, those little X things, right? How to make sure your tile lines up straight, how to use a chalk line. That's content, right? So I can go to your website and I can learn something. If their whole idea is, I don't know how the doers do, I don't know what their thing is, but the idea is about DIY, right? So they have a whole bunch of videos on DIY. Now, maybe they do. I should actually go check this now, because if they don't, they're missing a big deal. Then anytime someone Googles, how do I tile a bathroom? How do I'll put in installation? Anytime anything that's a home, they should be the number one video that comes up.
Yeah, the how-to tutorial, right?
Yeah, they should sit and do a how-to tutorial. It should be the number one video that comes up. That's content.
Yeah. Because you're answering the question the person had versus trying to sell them something, which is where I think we get trapped And for an
Yeah.
experiment, I put Google ad blocker on. So when I Googled, it would block, if it's a paid ad, it blocks. And I'm like, shit, man, I can't click on anything ever on a first page anymore. I have to go retype the domain because the domain itself is being paid for by my keyword search on the pain and the problem I'm trying to solve.
Mhm.
And we're sitting there going, well, I go over to YouTube personally, and I want to talk about that now. I go to YouTube a lot more than go to Google when I'm looking to solve a business problem. And I should say to get ideas, maybe not to solve it. I find YouTube is a place where I'm last year invested a lot of time and have learned that, holy shit, LinkedIn's over here, Keenan, but there's a whole world of video where people like you who are up and talking in front of people all the time can now take advantage of a platform that I think is really the future of our companies, and a lot of creators and people on LinkedIn haven't really looked at yet. Have you invested as much time in YouTube as you'd wanted to? Is it a strategy that you're consistent with? And if not, why?
We're consistent with it. We put up content all the time. We have 72 Gap Sell Keenans, which is content. You literally get to watch a real salesperson sell their product to me in a live setting. And then I provide them feedback on what they did wrong and how they messed it up, right? So we get good views there, but no, we have no indication that it's actually generated any direct leads. Now, we have no way of tracking, at least right now, we're not tracking whether or not people saw that, then went to LinkedIn or then went to our website, then bought the book, and then that's a long journey. So
you got
we
oodles
believe
of content.
in it.
Yeah.
Yes, we believe in it. We put the content there and we share the content. We're not stopping that strategy, but in no way, shape, or form are we using that as a direct strategy. Because look, in LinkedIn, I get someone reaching out to me in DMs all the time wanting to talk about our services, right? In addition to the about 20 or 25 hand raises we get every week of people saying, I want to talk to someone about speaking. I want to talk to someone about training. I want to talk to someone about... So we get those, but we're not getting those in YouTube. So we use it, but we can't trust that it's driving leads because it's not. We have no evidence it is directly.
It's a tricky channel. And I think I doubled down and listened to the guy, the CEO of YouTube, and he was talking about the future, and they just reinforced something. It kind of made me think, Keenan, in the way I consume content. Their goal is to get on the living room set of every family and the kitchen set, right? So they want me to see Keenan in my living room after I watch Keenan Peele, after I watch SportsCenter, whatever. And so the idea that it can interrupt us in our flow of our day, I think, is where it separates LinkedIn from me. And I get super interested in it. I by no means have become at all, I'm a novice still when I think about YouTube. It's just, there's so much there. And I think that if we just confine ourselves to think, well, business happens on LinkedIn, I'd say you're right. Because I think a lot of people would say yes, a lot less than you. I do get DMs on LinkedIn. They probably say, yes, I get those. A lot harder on YouTube, way harder on Reddit, like these other platforms where people talk about. I go, well, that sounds cool, but now you gotta look at this and go, you only have so much time in a day. Are you gonna sit there and comb Reddit threads to try and look for a sales opportunity? Or are you just gonna try and find the right conversations to be a part of? I'm gonna stop there and ask a question to you. When and where do you decide for you and your team on how you're gonna spend time in your social media, your creation of content, and how often do you revisit that?
I think we're pretty fluid, we're pretty agile with it. What we do is we ask ourselves, where is our audience? Where are they going to find, or where are they going to learn about what we do? And yes, there are some people who have figured out YouTube. Now, I've never seen the dude's numbers, so we making this shit up, but I see him all over Instagram. And we're actually launching a little Instagram campaign and TikTok campaign here in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting. It's advertising. So it is kind of, it's an ad. We'll see what happens with it for the book, not for our overall training, but for the book. But my point in telling you that story is, I don't think his name's Jeremy Minor or something like that.
Sure, Jeremy Minor.
He's everywhere. He's fucking with that little black
everywhere.
book. I give him credit. He keeps doing it, so I got to believe it's working. So I give the guy credit. He's doing something with that book. I don't know how he's turned it into cash or whatever, but you see some of his things that, for 500,000 views or likes or whatever. So he's done something. So I applaud him in that regard. But where I'm bringing him up is, it's very transactional, right? His Instagram and YouTube stuff is very, 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 very transactional. And you can see it's sort of like a lead magnet where he just gives away this free book, black book of 1,000 questions, right? I'm not even getting into whether that's good selling. It's really immaterial to me, but that's transactional. We're not transactional other than the book, right? Which we will never give away ever. Other than quick little promotions, I'll give you a book, but we're not going to say, hey, sign up now. We'll send you a free copy of this book. We will never do that. It's too valuable. The book is too
Gold
good.
mine.
Sold well over 100,000 copies selling, and I don't need to give it to you for shit. But other than the book, our services are in 5 figures. Start in 5 figures. I think our cheapest thing is for a sales team of 20 or less is $20,000 or $25,000, right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to try to get a customer, right, or try to create content that's going to get me a customer on LinkedIn. Your traditional LinkedIn viewer is not out searching for sales training.
Right.
They're just not. Now, they may be searching for sales content, but that's mostly going to be individual contributors and salespeople. The vice president of sales for a $10 million company is not going to YouTube to find out who he or she should be buying their sales training for.
They're going to communities and using dark social though, aren't they? They're going to communities like, I don't know, Rev Genius, the big one on the West Coast. Why am I forgetting the name of it? Those communities where all the CEOs pay them at Pavilion. Is that the name of it?
Pavilion, yeah. Pavilion. I was talking about,
yeah. So they're going there and saying, who do you use, right? That seems to be a really active channel.
Yeah, 100%. And what they do though, so they have a big presence on LinkedIn, so they know who we are. Pavilion knows who we are. Presence, 30 minutes of presence cover. Like all these people know who we are. I don't need YouTube to get them to know who we are, right? So, but we don't poo-poo YouTube. We don't say no to it. We just use it as part of the overall strategy, right, to drive content. And when we're done with that content, we put it there. We tell people, hey, go to YouTube and watch all 72 episodes of Gap Sell Keenan. Go here, and we use
They would
YouTube
learn so
Shorts.
much if they did.
Yes, I underpin the strategy, but we put our most time in the areas where we believe the buyers, vice president of enablement, operations, CROs, spend their time learning, listening, and watching to what's going on, and we still don't believe that's YouTube yet.
There's that's an awesome take on it. I think it's very honest. I think it's just I like to bring that question up because I think a lot of people have questions about it, so we socialize it together. For you, you've got a book.
I'll tell you one real quick, Steve. That I'm kind of mad at myself, and I'm kind of tough to work with, but also fun to work with. But I push my team. Yeah, I think SEO is still being undervalued. I'm watching all of these companies and people put all of this content on LinkedIn, and they're neglecting their blogs and they're neglecting their websites. So I've told my team I want to see a much bigger push this year for our content on the blog, and I want to see a real SEO strategy for our blog content, so that it lives out there so we can capture more organic search and stop giving all that value to LinkedIn.
Yeah. And there's also a keyword strategy that I'm studying this stuff and it's resonating. Number one on LinkedIn, there's only one thing that's truly SEO-able, and that is a newsletter where you can insert your SEO keywords. Everything else is what you type. So unless you're typing the same shit over and over again, which most content creators are like, no, I'm going to get creative. Well, creative doesn't do shit for SEO. Creative confuses SEO and goes, I don't know who this person is, no matter how big or whatever you are. And so I played around with keywords, just saying the same. Sure enough, made it to the second page of Google. First page by using content-led selling. In every post for 3 weeks, I was the #1 search. Why? Because nobody else is talking about it. So it's not valuable at this point. And so I just did a little research to back up what you said. And there's a lot of value in that. And I agree. And it's funny. I just set up an appointment with an SEO guy this morning for that same reason, which is, you got to get back on top of the searches. You got to show up because a lot of people are getting fatigue on feeds and they're going, fuck this, man, this same shit over and over again. And now I'm getting pitched from the same creators to buy their series. And I feel like I'm kind of getting used in a feed. So really I'm going to ads to get reprieve from it almost. It's kind of crazy, man. Okay, here's the big question. I want to respect your time. And I know you've got a meeting, so this could take 10 minutes in all of our time. But you've got a book and then you've got a buying experience. What do you do to always tighten the gap or measure the gap between those two things? Because you've got that gap of saying, how do we get that person from reading the book to reading the book and I'm qualified to go into, call it Keenan's funnel of shit I can buy to make me better? How do you take that and then get there? And how do you measure it and go, I'm happy with that? Or shit, we could be 20x in this thing. Because that would keep me up at night if I was you. Because you're big enough.
It does. And I don't think we've solved it yet.
Yeah.
And so we just had a meeting yesterday about this. So we've sold probably 130,000 books now, I think, 127. What's odd, I don't know if odd's the right word. What's fascinating, really fascinating, is our book sales are actually increasing. They've been increasing since December. So think about this for a second. When we first came out, right, big splash, no one read the book before, blah, 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 blah. And I think our biggest month was 30,000 books in that month, which was a good month, right?
Yeah.
And then it started to drop, but then it hovered for 4 years or 3.5 years, right around an average of about 2,000 a month. So we never had a big cliff, like it went way down to the belly. It just got off that high. We had a couple that creep into 2,200. Some would drop down to 18. But for the most, every month, like clockwork, 2,000. In December, it went whoop and shot back up. And now it's 2,800, 2,900. I was just told we did 1,500 in the first 10 or 12 days of March. So it looks like we're going to break our all-time record. So for whatever reason, people are grabbing onto it and it's starting to take off again. We haven't figured out how to capture those people and bring them along. What we have found in reverse is people said they read the book, and from their first touch to us, it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months before we hear from them when they actually move to make a decision to fix something or do something. But I'm sorry, I wish I could give everybody some big answer they could go home and repeat. We're still trying to figure it out ourselves. So what we do is we push the book because we know that the book creates exposure and people love the book. The book is a great first introduction. Like, this is cool as shit.
Yeah.
Then we just try to create as much content as possible. Now, Amazon is where we get most of our book sales. We just started getting our own books out, and that's why we're doing that campaign. We just got together with a 3PL, and so we're going to ship our own books. We'll give people an opportunity to buy them from us.
There you go.
We actually put a code in we're going to do this campaign and drive people to our site to buy the book from us so we can capture their names and get them into a funnel.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
You're getting into that. When I mentioned you're getting, well, people think of you, and just being honest, you kind of know this, and if not, just like there's a gap, right? There's a lot of people, everybody else, and then there's the yous of the world, right? Who have made a living out of doing this thing of putting your name out there. Now you got a company and some great people who work with you, right? But they see this and kind of go, that looks interesting, Keenan, and they read the book or they listen to a couple sound bites from it and go, wow, Keenan has a lot of energy. Wow, Keenan comes at me pretty hard. I like this. But then they don't go do the next thing, which is we just talked about, maybe call it the gap you're trying to solve, which is actually go solve the gap and measure the gap and go back and reassess if they're solving the gap or not. But you've got a service that does that right now. And I'm not trying to pitch your shit. I just think I call it fractional services, outsourced services, partner services. Right now, you talked about enablement. This is a good time to double down on that kind of stuff. Call recordings, coaching. Talk to me about that part of your business, because that to me is very powerful. And that's content that I'm going to pay for. I am sitting with you. I'm going to record those sessions and then spread it to my team. Are teams using you and your team like that to help disseminate information throughout their organizations today?
When they hire us, they are. So when they hire us and they go through the training and then let's do the call recording, everybody in the team sits on it.
Got it.
Not just that one person, the whole team. So if it's a team of 50, the one person whose call I'm reviewing or one of our team is reviewing, everybody else in the sales team sits on it and goes through it and is asked questions and participates. And then we also get the manager to do it. After the third or fourth one, the manager has to do it, and then we watch the manager do it and then coach him or her. So yes, it's extremely interactive, extremely engaging, and we do everything we can to embed it. Now, when I told you we're going down the enablement road, we recognize that very few people are talking about the holistic element of sales. So we recognize that there are 3 layers to sales, okay? And those layers are the skill layer. So does the team have the skills? And if so or if not, which skills should they have? How do we improve the skills, strengthen the skills, right? But the problem is no one's recognized the 3 layers, and so they're not interconnected. And so enablement will come out and say, here's all the sales training. We're working on the skills, but do very, very little and have very few processes to ensure that the skills are now being used, right, in actual real-life selling environments. They have almost zero processes to evaluate how well the salesperson is using them within what we call the opportunity layer. So that's the opportunity layer. How are we engaging customers? How are we evaluating deals? What information are we trying to gather? How good are we getting that information? How well do we move deals through the sales stages? How well do we close? What are the win rates? There's very little enablement involvement as it relates to the skills I already taught. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We do everything separately. and then wonder why when we train people, it doesn't translate into changes. Well, it's because you didn't build the systems, processes, and measures to take, this is what I taught you, so let me see if it's actually fucking working.
Boom.
Then there's the forecasting layer, and they don't even connect those two to start saying, so everything we're doing in the opportunity layer, how is that translating into better, more reliable forecasts, right? Do we have opportunity scoring, and is that scoring reliable enough to us to anticipate what could close? Like, we don't do any of that. And then they wonder why the shit don't work. So we're coming out with what we call the sales enablement success model. And last night I had a dream, and I think I'm going to call it the speed model because I like this. And it's sales, performance, efficiency, and wait, I just thought about last night. Sales, performance, efficiency, and enablement. Wait, sales, performance, efficiency, enablement, and delivery.
Ooh,
model.
Okay, I like that.
Speed, right? So I just literally had a dream about that last night. So we might call it speed now. The speed model, but the speed model is designed to connect the three critical layers of sales: skill layer, opportunity layer, forecasting layer, and make sure they're intertwined and interconnected so you can actually measure what you're actually working on.
That ecosystem, the climate, I just think of the cloud and the rain and going up and down, like
Yep.
win rates are increased. Okay, who did we win? Why did we win them? Are we bringing that back to the top of the funnel and going finding more people like that? It gets to be you should always have enablement turned on and cranked high and consistently measuring those things. I've been a part of, I can honestly say, one organization in my life that did that extremely well. It was at Outreach 2017, Matt Millen, Mark Casaglow, et cetera. Learned a lot from those guys. I remember, Keenan, we had call recording introduced that year. I remember they bought Chorus. None of us had ever heard about it. We all shit our pants and said, holy shit, the FBI is listening to us. Fuck this. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Like we were like, no way, this is never going to work. And now here we are, 7 years later, you've made a division of your company. Like, that's part of what you do is take those and coach people on that. Here's the last question before we talk to people about where they can find you. How much of your emphasis, if at all, do you put on, hey, gap selling is for top of funnel, mid funnel, or bottom of funnel? Because people are obsessed with this 3-part funnel right now. What is it most appropriate for?
All three. That's why I wrote the book. All three, right? Because there's no, again, when I talked about the enablement layers and everybody's working disjointly, and everyone's focused on skills and hey, everybody's been trained, and then they all go off and try to sell, but no one at the opportunity layer is actually evaluating what they learned and how is that translating into better calls, better conversations, improved conversions. No one's doing that, right? And then from that, with all the stuff they're doing at the opportunity layer, no one's turning around and saying, well, how is that translating into better forecasting, better win rates, et cetera? No one's doing that. Same thing in the sales cycle. Some people are like, oh, it's all about top of funnel and prospecting, blah, blah. Some people, oh, no, it's about discovery and in the middle of the funnel. But no, look at knuckleheads. It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. So gap selling recognizes that the most important part of a sale is discovery. Period, end of discussion. Because discovery sets up everything else. It ensures that you actually increase your win rates. It ensures that you're selling to the right people. And so here's a great example. I was going to write a post on this today. We've had 3 really big deals recently. Well, not really. 3 deals. We'll just go with that. In the last 6 weeks that have come through. And about halfway through the deal, we realized that there was no impact. So in gap selling, on the discovery, on the current state, we have 5 elements you must find. That is the physical and literal, the facts, like size of the company, all the bullshit facts. The next one is the problem that exists in that organization. Okay. Are you not making quota? You're not making revenue, whatever. What's your problem? Then the next one is the impact. Because you're not making your revenue, because you're not making quota, because your win rates are so low, what's the impact? Which a lot of people miss. And then the next one is the emotion that they're experiencing. And finally, what are the root causes? What's causing the problem to exist in the first place? So the reason I tell you this is we found 3 opportunities. They were very interested in a sales growth company and gap selling. They were saying all the right things. They were completely on the journey with us. But as we did the discovery, we could not find an impact. So at one point in time, we asked the head of sales directly, what's the impact here? Because I understand you're saying the problem. Watch what I do. Everybody pay very close attention to what I'm doing here. This is a gift. The problem to them was they didn't make quota. They only grew 13% as opposed to the 20. The year before that, they only grew 18% as opposed to it. They have 20% year-over-year growth has been their goals, and they missed it the last 2 years. So that to them was a problem. Highly profitable company. Mm-hmm. I want to say in the tune of $250 million or something like that, right? Or $300 million. They want it
It's a lot to miss,
Not,
though. Just to highlight that, 2 years of missing that shit, you're missing a half a year after 2 years of missing
yes, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Private company, though. Private company. Owned by two brothers. Okay? So not to say these two brothers don't like money and they, and missing by, I'm forgetting the numbers up to me, but I think it was missing by 10 million. Missing by 10 million, and let's say they had a 25 or 30% profit margin, which I never got. That's $3-4 million out of their pocket. Not saying they don't like that, but everybody working at the company knew we were still making money, we were still moving forward, we were still profitable. So there was no major impact. And I literally looked him in the face and I said, look, man, I get that you're down. I get it's been 2 years in a row. But what happens if you miss again? Like, what's the impact? And they said, well, people will be disappointed and they'll be frustrated, but I don't think anything major is going to happen. Okay, now think about it. They're a private company. They've been around for 25 or 30 years. They have no intention of going public. I don't think they have any intention to sell anytime soon. Yeah, it kind of sucks. But there's no major impact if they miss it. Now, if they miss by 30, 40%, that's a different story, but no one's fearing that. So the idea was if they don't do anything, it would kind of suck, but nothing horrible. Okay? I told my sales team, I said, they're not going to go with us. And sure as heck, in spite of having an internal champion, we got a note from him, and it said this, and I quote, we know that you were the better sales methodology. We know that you would have much more impact on the organization, but we weren't ready to do a wholesale change. So we went with a smaller, less intrusive solution for now, and we may consider you in the future. So what they said was, watch this, it wasn't worth the change. The impact wasn't big enough for the change. I saw it coming. Same with the other two. We got there. This is the whole argument about discovery. We did the full discovery, several meetings, and everything we realized, and there just wasn't an impact. So I said, we're not going to win this deal either. And sure as shit, they didn't change. So we have visibility before it fucking happens because we know that if we don't get certain information, the chances of them buying go from here to here, in spite of how big the problem is, how bad they want it. It's the impact that finally drives the sale.
Check that box in the CRM. You guys probably do that when you come in. Is there impact or not? What is the firm criteria? Check the boxes, not what do you feel?
Yeah. And what is the impact? We don't even have a box. It's a whole field. What is the impact? And then I or another manager reads that and says, I don't think that's a real impact. Like they have to define it. Not, there's an impact. Define it. We have another client we just had that has a huge impact. They have missed their numbers and they want to sell the organization by the end of 2025 for $20 million and need to be doing $6 million in revenue. And right now they're only at $3 million. So now I know there's an impact. If you don't, it's a $3 million problem, current state problem, right? So they have to make that. But the real impact of not changing is $20 million.
Oh, hell yeah. Maybe more, right? You can't quantify the sale price of the company because
They can. They believe at $6 million, the valuation would be at 20. So we go.
I see what you're saying. 3.5x for, okay, got it.
Yeah, right. So that's their perception. So now we know this is a real opportunity because these guys are fearful. They're concerned. They're not on track to 20 million.
Fear is a motivator. Fear is a motivator.
Yes. You just got it. The impact is the motivator. So I share all of this with you to answer your question about discovery.
Yeah.
If you don't do a proper discovery, you don't ever properly understand the size of the problem, what's causing it, and the impact of lack of change. If you don't have that, then you don't understand why they should change. You burn countless hours on deals that will never close. And then from there, if you do understand the impact, then you're in the driver's seat to continue to remind the buyer and guide the buyer to solving the root causes and show them by solving these root causes, you'll solve the problem and therefore eradicate the impact and deliver on the desired outcomes. And now you're in complete control of the sale the rest of the way. So it is absolutely the whole sales cycle, but most people don't have the wherewithal to look at how it's all connected.
Sales teams need you. I think it's connecting their own dots, Keenan, and coming up with that. And what really interesting take there, like you didn't feel, the impact, you didn't feel it. So now you have a quantifiable mid to bottom funnel thing that you can bring back to the top of the funnel where I live a lot. And I love that space, right? Because I always say, hey, help us inform the top of the funnel. People go, here's our lookalike list. I go, fuck your lookalike list. I don't give a shit about the last 170 companies who bought from you. I care about the last 20, 30, because problems shift, they change. And on top of that, if I'm not having active dialogue, if I'm just looking at data, I'm not continuing to feed that machine. Like you said, it's the ecosystem of like, it needs to be educated, implemented, and a system. And I love that you have it, because a lot of people, I mean, to get the amount of content, you like good killer content, it takes fucking years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, camera crews, people to design it. Like, this is not your LinkedIn posting. I was so excited to have you on because you do real fucking content, hardcover books. So thank you for the masterclass today. Where can everybody go find your shit? Because either they've hung up by now because they're probably racing up to buy your book, or they're going, this is too fucking intense for me, man. I just want the easy boat.
Yeah. I mean, look, LinkedIn, Keenan dot, because you have to put something in the last name field. Or you can find me at salesgrowth.com, salesgrowth.com. Or just search ASG, a sales growth company. I mean, we're not hard to find. Like, except Gap Selling, like if you can't find me, you got other problems.
Yeah. How's your daughter doing with skiing?
Great. She actually just won the U.S. Freestyle U15 National Championships on Saturday.
Isn't she a world record holder?
No, she's only 13. No. But she's very well positioned within the mogul ski world right now for her age. So she won the F13 last year.
Yeah.
As a 12-year-old, and also came in second in the U15 last year. This year she came back and beat the girl who's a year older than her.
Oh yeah.
Head to head, and basically with the exception of one, two girls, beat the entire field by 10 to 12 points or more. So, and she's her first year at F15. So next year she'll be F15 again, but all the older girls will be gone who she's beating. So she's doing really well. She just got a big award from her regional ski division and called her the Going for the Gold. They give to one U15 every year, one boy, one girl, just one athlete.
Wow.
Who they believe has the greatest chance of winning a gold medal. And she was given that award, and the people on that trophy, it's sort of like the Stanley Cup. They etch people's names into it. You know what I'm saying? The past recipients, the girls on that trophy and boys on that trophy, no one of you would know this, but Tess Johnson, Olivia Gaccio, Kai Owens, Liz Lemley, and Asher Michael, some of the names on it, all of them are on the U.S. team right now.
Hell yeah.
So she's doing well is the answer.
That's impact, man. We're going to catch you. Last question. We're going to catch you in a bus this spring or summer, touring around, doing any live events. Are you going back out?
Nope. No more live events.
All right.
For a while.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, enjoy.
It don't work.
Yeah. More work, more money, more problems. All right, Keenan. Thank you so much for joining the Magnetic Podcast. You're off to the next one, brother. Me. All right, man. Have a great one. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, man.
All right, bro. You too.
All right. Be good.
Peace.